Learning English, Intermediate Grammar, Modal Verbs. Welcome to our English language learning video. In this lesson, we will focus on an important aspect of intermediate grammar, modal verbs. Specifically, we will delve into the usage of should, ought to, and had better when giving advice. By the end of this video, you will have a solid understanding of how to use these modal verbs correctly in context. So, let's get started. Should is a modal verb commonly used to give advice or make suggestions. It implies that something is recommended or considered the right course of action. Let's look at a few examples. You should eat a balanced diet to stay healthy. He should apologize for his behavior. We should study for the exam to improve our chances of success. Notice that should is used in all three examples to express advice or recommendation. It is often followed by the base form of the verb. Similar to should, ought to is also used to give advice. However, ought to conveys a stronger sense of moral obligation or duty. Let's see some examples. You ought to call your parents more often. She ought to apologize for what she said. We ought to be more environmentally conscious. As you can see, ought to expresses a higher level of recommendation, emphasizing that something is not just advisable but morally right or necessary. When we want to give strong advice and emphasize the potential negative consequences of not following it, we can use had better. Here are a few examples. You had better leave now if you want to catch the train. He had better study harder, otherwise, he might fail the course. We had better take the necessary precautions to avoid getting sick. Had better is often used to warn about potential negative outcomes and is followed by the base form of the verb. It conveys a sense of urgency or importance. Now that we've explored the usage of should, ought to, and had better, it's essential to understand the different levels of advice they convey. Here's a quick summary. Should, general advice or recommendation. Ought to, stronger recommendation, implying moral obligation. Had better, strong advice with potential negative consequences. Remember that these modal verbs can be used interchangeably in some cases, but their nuances and levels of emphasis may vary. Congratulations! You've successfully learned how to use should, ought to, and had better when giving advice in English. By mastering these modal verbs, you'll be able to provide guidance, recommendations, and warnings effectively. Practice using them in various contexts to become more comfortable and fluent in English. Keep up the great work, and happy learning!